Good evening, and thank you for joining us on the Media Connection. I'm your host, Naima Latif, and we're here at what those who are supporting Governor Quinn hope to be a victory party. But the race is still close, and as we know, there have been some difficulties at some of the polling places, and so the vote for Chicago is still slow to come in. Some of the polling places had to stay open an extended time, and as a result, that very critical Chicago vote is still not totally counted yet. It's going to be a close one. It's definitely a nail-biter. We'll be back with more who've been supporting Governor Quinn and also more insight on this election. I'm Naima Latif. We'll be right back in a moment. And we're back. Yes. We're here at the Allegro where Governor Pat Quinn is running a very tight race, and I'm here with Professor Robert Starks, who is well known as a political analyst and consultant and overall expert in this area. Professor Starks, what do you see as the outcome of this race? It's still kind of too close to call, but
too close to call. We're hoping that the governor can finally pull it out. We think he can. There are some wards in the city, in the inner city, that have not come in yet, and we're hoping that when they come in, it'll give him a victory. We always knew it was going to be very, very close, but we think he can pull it out.
Well, we know we were really expecting the Chicago vote to go heavy for Pat Quinn, but it looks like that Bruce Rauner actually got a little more out of Chicago than was expected. What do you attribute that to?
Well, money. He paid for it. He bought votes. It's pure and simple. Plus, the Republicans, I believe, were instrumental or assisted in the rigging of the polls because, as you know, there was a great deal of sabotage with the judges and the polling places, etc. So I'm sure that contributed to some of that 21% that he got from the city.
So you don't think that was accidental, that many of the polling places had difficulties?
No, I don't think it was accidental at all. Not at all.
Now, should we see a Rauner victory, what are some of the changes you think might happen in Illinois?
God. We're a combination of Rauner and Rahm Emanuel would be a devastating combination to the black community, believe me. So we would see cuts in education. We would see the proliferation of charter schools and possibly vouchers and cutbacks in education at higher education. It would be devastating to the African American community, very much so.
Well, thank you so much, and we'll keep watching and waiting and see what happens.
Thank you.
This is Naima Latif. We'll be right back in a moment.
We had an election 4 years ago, and in that election, there were a lot of votes that weren't counted on election night. They had to be counted the next couple of days. And I didn't say anything until we knew everybody's vote counted. And so it wasn't until Friday after the election that the results were really certain. So I think the prudent thing to do on behalf of democracy in Illinois, today, they exercise their fundamental right to participate in our democracy, and they're entitled to make sure that the election authorities in every single county, including Chicago and Cook County, count their votes. And they're going to be counting tomorrow, the next day, probably the next day. Judgment on the results of this election. Yeah! I want to say to everyone here and to everyone in Illinois who voted for our side today, who worked in our campaign so hard in such an energetic way. We believe in the cause. The cause is making sure that everyday people get a fair share. That's what I believe. We are the government of the many. on the government on the money. And we will never, ever yield to a result until all the votes are in.
Been a strong supporter of Bruce Rauner for governor. Well, it's looking like a victory, even though it hasn't been declared. How do you feel right now?
Well, all the other stations have declared it. I think it's a victory. I'm feeling pretty good, and I'm excited about what's going to happen for our community. I think things are going to be better. I think the educational system is going to be better. I think the economy is going to get better, and a lot of people are going to be pleased with the job that Bruce does.
What are some of the things that you hope he supports as governor, should that be official?
Well, enterprise zones, of course. You know, we need enterprise zones in the inner city so we can have companies to move in and create jobs, give them some tax incentives to create those jobs. And I think that will always help. I think the fact that we're going to work on school choice, where our kids can have a right to go to any school just like anybody else, I think that's going to be good. And I think just helping the violence to go down once you get the education and economic straight, violence will definitely go down. So I think it's going to be a great win for the city of Chicago and for the South Side and West Side specifically.
Now, you took kind of a risk in supporting him because there are a lot of people that didn't believe it was time for us to support the Republican Party. How do you feel about that and some of the responses you got?
Well, I took a risk, but it was worth the risk. I would do it all over again. And I'm hurt that some of the responses were the way that they were. No one wants to get called certain names and things like that. But I think someone has to take the heat to get our community to understand that for far too long, Democrats have taken advantage of the black community by always believing that we're just going to vote one way. And as a result, and as a consequence of that, not doing anything for us. I think that day is over. I think people are going to have to earn our votes, and they're going to have to make sure that our community does a lot better. And if they don't, I'm going to work passionately, whether they're a Democrat or a Republican, to make sure that we get rid of them. And so they're going to have to produce, and our communities are going to be better. That's a guarantee.
Well, thank you so much for all your hard work. And I'm Naima Lateef with the Media Connection. We'll see you next time.